We're gonna have a little bit of a different schedule tonight. We have a joint village board and plan commission public hearing, and then immediately following that, we're gonna have a special joint village board and plan commission meeting. And then immediately following that, we're gonna have our regular plan commission meeting. We're gonna have another public hearing and then follow the regular meeting schedule after that. Called order the first joint public hearing. Roll call first.
6:31.
Yes,
All right. President Osterman,
here.
trustee Quinn is present on Zoom. Trustee Moonen is present on Zoom. Commissioner Eppen,
Here.
Commissioner Eberly,
Here.
Commissioner Howard,
Here.
Commissioner McCormick,
Here.
Planner Sumwalt, Attorney Macy,
Here.
and Clerk Capazzo to record the minutes. Trustee Plotecker, Engineer Lysis, and Administrator Nicholas are all absent and excused.
Thank you. Plan Commission and Village Board. Notice was given that a joint public hearing will be held by the Lisbon Village Board and Plan Commission on Wednesday, February 28th, starting at 6:30 PM at the Richard Young Memorial Fire Station at North 54 West 26455 Lisbon Road to solicit public comments on a proposed amendment to the Lisbon zoning code, in particular, but not limited to section 25 sub B regarding permitted uses in the B2 local business district. The proposed amendment would create section 25 sub B 2.ll and add a permitted use for theaters, arcades, video game parlors, and other indoor amusement places to the B2 local business district. All right. Warren?
Or you're muted.
How about now?
Other one. That one.
At, oh, there we go. At Party Time, they're calling it Party Time Golf and Sports Bar. Party being a clever pun, which I appreciate as a dad. This would take up 3 suites, the end suites on the west end of this existing building. No proposed exterior changes. As part of this, we took a look at, how this was referenced in the code. We didn't find a perfect fit. I've listed some examples of, places where we got close, but, didn't come all the way to what we thought would be needed for this. So at the January 24th meeting, you may recall, we had a discussion about what would be an appropriate approval procedure for this. The consensus was that the theaters, arcades, video game parlors, and other indoor amusement places was the best fit for this proposed indoor recreational golf simulator use, specifically the last part, the indoor amusement places component of that. Since this is also a sports bar with limited food service, they still need a conditional use, and we'll get to that component of the project later. So the commission directed staff to prepare a text amendment to add the theaters, arcades, video game parlors, and other indoor amusement places use to the B2 local business district as a permitted use. You may recall this particular district and this section of that from our work for the Mudjackers use and project where we added part KK. So now we're looking at adding LL for, again, the language being theaters, arcades, video game parlors, and other indoor amusement places in the B2 district. The again, code currently does not allow for entertainment type venues except for a couple instances as conditional uses. Within the B2 district, indoor entertainment uses seem to be a good fit to support adjacent retail and service oriented uses in the B2 district and would help meet some of the community's needs. I would just point out that Sussex recently did a similar amendment to their code to allow a similar type of use in a strip shopping center in that community. So it is something that is a growing type of use with a need. the petitioner is here, if there are, when we get to the CU component of that. But just since we're just broadly talking about the text amendment, I'm available for questions, and we can get to the other aspects of their business when we get to the other part.
Yes, you will. Any questions from the commission? None. Sean?
Very thorough report.
Oh, from the board also, Paul or Mark?
Not at this time, Joe, thanks.
Mark?
Nothing for me.
I do, Joe. I know you said for limited use of food. Could I go into that subject? Just basically, you know, frying wings, et cetera. So are you looking down the road? Would that be part of your plan?
That's the other
to-
public hearing.
Sean?
Oh, that's not part of it. Got,
That's, yeah, that'll be part of the CU
okay.
later. So this would be on the, text amendment.
No, my bad. I jumped
Sure.
ahead.
Okay. Okay, then at this time, we're gonna open it up for public comment. Teresa, you state your name and address. You're a veteran.
Yep. Teresa, you're just gonna have to turn on the microphone. Thank you.
I have, I don't think I've ever.
Ordinance.
There you go.
Just flip the switch. Yep.
Okay, Teresa Nelson, N95 W25850 Riverview Drive. I live behind the strip mall. Apparently at your meeting, I guess it was in January of 2024, it was discussed as a plan or proposed the business to go into a strip mall at 164 and Q, but the proposed plan wasn't allowed on the property, which is zoned B2. For that meeting's minutes, you discussed the differences between property zone B2 and property zone B3. And the proposed development, I guess, would probably be a match for B3, but not B2. Your proposed solution, according to the minutes of that meeting, was it appears to be for the sole benefit of the planner to change the law to suit him. Quote, they directed the staff to draft a text amendment to add indoor amusement language from the B3 district as a permitted use in the B2 district. I vehemently object for several reasons. First of all, per the village ordinances, the purpose and intent of section 25 governing B2 local business districts is it's intended to provide for retail and customer service establishments serving the local area. Section 26 governs B3 general business districts, and the proposed intent there is to provide for business and trades of a more general nature in serving a larger trade area. Under the current law, theaters, arcades, video game parlors, and other indoor amusement places are permitted in B3. Such establishments are not allowed even under a conditional use for property zone B2. I wasn't at the meeting to hear your discussion, and the minutes didn't tell us, but I'm curious to know why you think the original authors included such establishments on B3 property, but not on B2. The proposal suggests to add such establishments on B2 properties as a permitted use. No need to even go through the CUP process. Did you give any thought to what impact this change would have to the ordinances on other properties zoned throughout the village that are at currently B2? Or did you tunnel vision on this single location because someone wants to put something in that strip mall? Because if that's what you're doing, that's no way to write a law. This impacts the whole village, not just that corner. The proposed change is so offensive to the existing ordinances that a section 2 needed to be added in the draft. Quote, all ordinances or parts of ordinances whose terms conflict with the provisions of this ordinance are hereby repealed as to those terms that conflict. Really? Which other ordinances would be in conflict with this one if it's enacted? Did you give any thought to why those ordinances are written in the manner that they're written before you just blanket repeal them? And number 4, the draft ordinance number 2024-05 is in conflict with itself, insofar as it pilfers language about theaters, arcades, parlors, and amusement places from section 26 and drops it into section 25 as a permitted use. But then it adds, all such uses are subject to approval by the Plan Commission, which may contain conditions that the Plan Commission feels are necessary to satisfy the goals and objectives of the code. My question, what code? You just repealed the whole damn thing. If it was in conflict. This thing doesn't make any sense for you guys to do this. It's a bad idea, and I'm asking you not to change our zoning laws to benefit one person at the expense of all the residents of the village. Thank you.
Do we have anyone else on Zoom?
Nope.
Anyone? No response to that. Okay, and you'd have a chance when we're closing the comments, or not closing, but bringing it back to the board, which we will now do. I guess I would have a follow-up on that is, if we do allow it in B3 and not B2, why would this be more appropriate than just change, requesting a zoning amendment?
That is a possibility, which, I put into this report as well, so
At the staff meeting, if I may, we discussed that potentiality and we decided that we'd have to do a thorough review of all the other businesses in the strip mall and other potential businesses past and future to see whether or not they would be allowed. And we thought we didn't discuss that in length with the Plan Commission last month, but they certainly knew that that was also an option. But that was at the staff meeting, the reason why we felt, well, we left it really up to the Plan Commission as to which way they wanted to go. But when we discussed it at the staff meeting, that was the concern we had. I think you'd have to look at every other business that was in there to make sure that by rezoning it from rezoning the entire strip mall and what the ramifications would be. We certainly didn't want to make anybody legal non-conforming. Does that make sense?
And I was not here for the last meeting, so I only
Yeah.
have the minutes to go off of from the. at
Yeah,
this
that's
point.
why I wanted to expound upon that a little bit.
Questions spring from that from the commission?
Can I ask Ms. Nelson a question? Or is that not? appropriate? It's part of your- My question would have been if her concern had to do with maybe more traffic, and that's why she was opposed to adding this. Because there was a bank there before, wasn't there? So that probably had a comparable amount of traffic.
And when we reopen it for public comments, she'll be able to potentially answer that. Well, and I'll open it, I promise you, you get another goal. I promise.
I could see that being a concern if it was gonna be a substantial amount of more traffic, but seeing the traffic they have at the other establishment in Sussex that's similar, I don't think that would be a lot more traffic.
John?
Pretty thorough, thank you.
I guess I would have a couple follow-ups on it. And again, I wasn't here at the last one to hear some of the discussion, so you may have already discussed some of this. But as far as theaters, arcades, video games, and parlors and other indoor amusement places, I mean, this does cover a wide range. Was it discussed at all about limiting maybe in the B2 to something that would be more, I guess, smaller scale? I mean, this is golf simulators, I think was what the intent of this was, which obviously isn't a massive thing, which I don't, that's.
No, I think in the example for Sussex, they did limit their definition to 30,000 square feet. Obviously, projects are looked at on a case-by-case basis. The biggest component of this is that it's all indoor. And I would just say that, the drafters of this ordinance were the county. At the time this ordinance was created, this type of use didn't exist. That technology didn't exist. There's a lot of things in zoning that have to catch up with the times. It's indoor entertainment certainly has existed. But a golf simulator business is new relatively.
Sure, and 100%. The only thing is the theaters, arcades and video game parlors are not. Now, this facility isn't massive,
Nope.
but I'm just a little concerned about what control we would have. I mean, we used to have something in Brookfield. I forgot what it was called, but it was pretty big. They had indoor golf. They had a lot of games and everything, and they actually outgrew it rather quickly. And I think John Milan actually owned it back in the day.
Fun Zone?
Yeah,
Over
used to be
on-
some
Yep.
all seasons family fun, then became Fun Zone,
Mhm.
and
I remember.
it turned into a pretty large deal.
Mhm.
Do we have the ability to restrict that down? Cause I would not want something like that up there. I think that would be not a good fit for the area, but something small.
We change it to maybe just indoor amusement places not to exceed X number of square feet. Like you said.
Just to be able to control
I
some
mean,
of it.
not get so specific, just, I mean, because theaters, arcades and video game parlors would fall under indoor amusement places. Just drop that first part and just say indoor amusement places. Not to exceed whatever. Amount of square footage is among smaller.
Just don't want to have this where it turns out we have a large facility somewhere that does fall into the B2, and all of a sudden we have a large gaming place that may or may not fit the area and have no control. Limiting it.
The president, could we bring up the zoning map to show what areas we're speaking of? Because at staff, we also discussed how little B2 we have.
Right
in
now.
the village.
Yeah.
Well, but no, it has a right to rezoning. So
I'll bring it up. Give me just a second.
I mean, yes, but.
But if you're covering B2 and B3, that's pretty much a lot of what would be business in the area.
But it's already B.
But I mean, even in the future, then you'd almost have to create a new. I haven't looked at B1 comparison, but I do not believe this was ever thought of when this was done. Nobody thought of a lot of this stuff back when this code was originally written, the B2, B3. I mean, I was on the board when we did this. Sure, there was a lot of things that were not thought of back in 2007, 8, 9, because there's a lot of technology that did not exist. Now, gaming arcade systems and indoor, like, mini golf and stuff, that did exist, but there was a way to put some limits on this in the B2 versus the B3. And you guys, Sherry was going by size, I think.
Right, I also just make it so, drop the first part off and just limit it to indoor amusement places under or up to X number of square feet.
So I've got the most recent zoning map up here on the screen. Again, the area that we're talking about would be commercial zoned properties. The B2 has this gray cross hatching, so red is really the color that we're dialed in on. I'll just zoom over to these red areas that show up on the map are commercial zoning districts. B2 has a gray cross hatching, B3 has a double hatch, if you will. So where we find these, along some of the arterial roads, there's some along various parts of 164. Down here on Moraine.
Some B2.
And some B2, the gas station is B2.
See, that would be one
What's,
right there that would concern
Yeah.
me.
where the old drive-in was, up there by Richmond School that you just had up there? Where is that zone? Yeah, that's what I couldn't, I didn't look.
I don't know where that is. Where is that?
Richmond, and it's right here, right across the street.
Right there,
Short Road and Inlet and Richmond.
and High Road and.
Right there, yep.
Yeah, What's it right there with High Road and K? What is that zone?
B2.
Two.
That's B2. And kitty corner from that is also zone B2?
Yep. Some down here. Our southwest corner. There's some over off of K, by the quarries. That's B3. Two further down on K. And then if we go here towards Main Street, you've got
That's right in
some,
the middle of
That's the McLaughlin property. Yep.
Colgate, and then up a little further.
Current zoning does not say that, you know, land that's agricultural.
west of B3.
Well, as an example, kitty corner from where I was just talking about, if that's zone B2 and they wanted to put something in there larger than Sherry's proposed 3,000 square feet, then they would request a change in zoning to B3, and that would take care of that issue. Would it not?
Yeah, even the stuff that's a permitted use is still gonna be subject to site plan of operation. We're still gonna look at the overall site and the appropriateness of the use for the site. We're gonna still look at parking. They're still gonna have to meet our standards for that. So obviously, the larger the use, the more the demand is gonna be for the parking, the more space they're gonna need, which would preclude a smaller parcel.
I'm just looking at the current code here, for bakeries, it has a stipulation of not more than 10 employees. Is that something that to make sure it can stay a smaller establishment in the B2 zone? The square footage in a smaller number of employees.
Sherry, can you tilt your microphone towards you a little bit more? They're struggling to hear
I'm
you on
sorry.
Zoom. Thank you.
I was saying in our current code for bakery, which is a permitted use in B2, it's got a parenthetical that says not over 10 employees. For B2, could we limit the indoor amusement to keep under a certain square footage and a certain number of employees to be sure that it's going to be a smaller establishment in the B2 zoning?
The only thing is like places like, there's just like Sky Zone. That's a business I'm thinking of. It doesn't have a lot of employees, but it's a lot of people that can come into something like that. I don't know if it's directly relatable anymore. I think the square footage would for sure do it though, and just giving it being able to limit it down. I mean, I've seen these facilities. Bar is one thing, but I mean, the actual amusement portion of this doesn't typically draw a huge crowd, but that's separate from the alcohol kind of things. But did the village of Sussex limit size wise on their,
30,000 square feet.
they were at 30,000 square feet? It's pretty big.
Yep.
Did they distinguish, did they have it in separate zoning where they had, like what Foster were B2, B3? That you're aware, or was it just like one zoning area that they had it in?
Their amendment was to their B2.
But
And then-
but the size restrictions on both, is it?
I don't recall.
I think the size restriction was when they added it
And
for
that,
this one, but
and that was for their B2, the size restrictions on both B2 and B3?
I
at that
don't
point?
believe so, but I'll look it up for you.
Okay.
Well, my question is, if you limit it to a size, does that include everything that the food, the bar and the simulators? That's not the building itself. That's all one building to strip. So it would be, the
Is that-
30,000 square feet would just be for that portion of that building. Okay. Then I could, if that would work, that would certainly limit what you could do in there.
And if they were building new, it would limit the development, the new development to that. So either you could only lease up to that amount of space for your use, or you could only build something that size if you add a restriction like that to the definition.
Mark and Paula, what are your thoughts on this?
Is Paula first or me?
You can go ahead, Mark.
I actually, I think it was Miss. Sorry.
I'll jump in while Mark is,
I'm good. I just had a
Okay.
extra citizen available. So I would echo what Miss Otis had to say earlier. I think that initially, this might work for this site, but I think as a whole, I think we're opening a slippery slope for other areas. And I would think that we can rework it with much more restrictions if we do go to the B2.
Yeah, I would agree, although the point that was just brought up about if there's going to be some new building, I would want to be careful that we don't restrict, possible development of something moving forward, just be cognizant of that as well.
Back up for some comments here quickly.
Yeah, the only thing that I have, and I appreciate the size limitation. I think that would probably be something that you should consider for sure. I think 30,000 feet is pretty big.
Mm.
Maybe something like around 10 or 15. I mean, considering that mall and, it's right by residential homes. So, and I'm assuming that's what makes a B2 different from a B3. You've got residences nearby, whereas a B3 might just have more industrial or institutional around it. So, I mean, that's something you have to take into consideration, not just for my neighborhood and the mall behind me, but for all the other red spots on your map. Or at some date when some of that agricultural builds out. So I appreciate that idea. I think that's a pretty good idea, but if you can bring that down from 30,000, just because Sussex did that, doesn't mean you guys have to do that. God, I hope we're not Sussex.
I think he was just using it as a guideline.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, we'll bring it back up. Go ahead.
What is the current size planned for right now with those three bays? What is how many square feet are we looking at currently?
Aaron's looking it up.
Yeah, it's in my staff review here, isn't it? Like, just got to flip to it.
I saw it just.
It couldn't be much bigger.
I just saw it.
5,243 square feet.
So if we limited to, if we use an example of possibly 10,000, even if they bought or leased or operated in adjacent bays of that, 10,000 is still, I don't know how big that whole building is.
So 70,000.
Oh, so 10,000 square feet would be more than reasonable, I would think, and that would limit anything that would go into there.
And if somebody would want to build a bigger establishment, they would just
Then
have to
we start-
rezone it to B3.
Right.
And then you could consider the appropriateness for the area based on the rezoning.
And we're in a whole nother
Right.
ballgame. So maybe 10,000 would be more appropriate.
I mean, the 10 to 15,000 for me would be.
Yeah.
I mean, 10.
I wouldn't
100 by
make it, I
100.
mean, 15,000 is still a third of it. I mean, that's a lot of building. I would say, yeah, 10 to 15,000 and whatever number we land on.
Mark, you had some strong feelings on it. Would that help you with your thoughts?
Yeah, I didn't hear what the total, I'm hearing 3,000 or 30,000.
We were talking between 10 and 15 were the two numbers that were being discussed at the moment.
What, and then I heard Sussex was 3,000 or 30,000. I guess that was my
30.
clarification.
30.
Okay. What, I guess, I don't know what 10,000 square feet of business looks like.
The 100 by 100.
Well, he said the strip mall up, the current strip mall was about 17,000 square feet, so a little bit less than that. Half of that.
I can tell you the Napa store in Sussex is 10,000 square feet with 2 levels though, so it's 5,000 per side or per level.
That'd be a pretty big, if it
So
was one level, it'd be a
times-
pretty big
Basically, if it was
footprint.
one level, it'd be just double it.
I mean, if you have a 40-foot building, which is normal depth of a building, it'd be 25 feet, that'd be 10,000 square feet, so if you even went to 15,000, it still wouldn't be that much. And as somebody mentioned before, if somebody wants to take over that whole building, then they would come in there and would go to B3 and that would take care of it. If B3 were permitted in there. But I'm looking at it from the standpoint of the existing building and how much it would be. So if that existing building is 17,000 square feet, if we went to even to 15,000 square feet. That's that whole building. It's not gonna happen. If somebody else wants to build in there, I mean, that would give anybody or the owner of the building more latitude to reuse the rest of the building and convert it into some other use. I could live with 15,000 square feet as a cap.
Sean, what's your thought on a cap? If you're in favor of cap, that is.
Well, no, the cap is quite reasonable. What? You know, we have the residents, there are 3 additional residents in that strip mall that are pretty much do you guys have control of the leases or anything on that with those owners?
I believe they are all.
You wouldn't mind, we're on, they won't be able to hear you on Zoom if you're not. Just state your name. please.
Good evening, everyone. So the other tenants in the area, they all are conditional use, I believe. I don't recall all of those leases. I'm also the property owner. The liquor store, the Medi Spa and the dentist, they are all conditional use. And the space that we're utilizing roughly about 5,200, I understand the potential, future concern the plan commission may have to accommodate a bigger facility. This is a small parcel. We got no way to fit that, other expansion without your approval, even if we desire to in the future. I appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
So we definitely be looking at it as a whole, Sean, because this will affect the whole village. Where you think you'd be comfortable with that number? If you are in favor of a cap, where you think you would be comfortable having that number at? Again, as for like a size comparison, if you're familiar with the Napa store in Sussex, that's 50 by 100 long, so that's 5,000 square feet. So you'd be double wide that.
Yeah, so, yeah, you were saying 10, I believe, and I think 10 would be quite reasonable for now because it, I think 10 would be quite reasonable because then, otherwise you're looking at an odd number at 17, because if you're taking all the other ones out, that's gonna be 17. So I think 10 would be reasonable to a reasonable cap.
Sure.
I prefer 10 over 15.
Brian,
I vote for 10,000 as well.
Joe, where you at?
Fine with me.
Paula,
I would go with 10.
Mark?
I would be in favor of the 10, just for reference, does the Fairways of Woodstock still have their golf simulator? Because, I don't recall what that was.
Yes, they
zoned.
do.
And is that a B3 or B2?
They are zoned PR Park and Recreation.
And does anybody know the approximate size of their simulator?
I do not.
That's less. Yeah, most it'd be 5,000.
Right. Yeah, I would be in favor of 10,000 or 7,500.
I'd be good with, I would have been going with either one, but I mean, 10 is, I think, the consensus, and I think it'll cover needs. Okay. Anything? Any other questions or comments then?
So would
I'll
we,
let you talk again.
if we were to go that way, then would we do what was suggested and eliminate the first four phrases there and just say indoor amusement places the maximum or area of 10,000 square feet and eliminate the
Okay, I will chime in legally on that. You cannot do that tonight. You would have to adjourn it and set it over. We don't have a definition of other indoor amusement places. And the only reason I allowed it to go this way without the definition is because of the earlier words. So I don't care which way you go, you're just not gonna do it tonight, because we're gonna have to come back with a definition of indoor amusement places if we don't have the previous language, okay?
I understand. Good point. Is there any
Yeah.
reason why we would not want to leave those phrases in there?
Pardon?
Is there any reason we couldn't leave it as it is and just put the limiter on the end?
We could, so we could keep the, theaters, arcades, video game parlors and other indoor amusements and just add on the end where the space of the use is under 10,000 square feet.
And then we could do it tonight.
Correct.
Okay.
I want to talk about that phrase that he just said, where the use. Cause is that clear enough that that doesn't include the restaurant and the other things? Is it just the theater, that's the language in Sussex, and it is in both, Mr. President, I looked it up. And so they do have the 30,000 in both the B2 and B3, so they just mimicked it from the one to the other when.
So that is the gaming areas only, not including the restaurant portion or bar portion.
Well, I just need to make sure, because it could be interpreted either way when it says the use.
I would like to make sure it's clear, whatever we come up with, because to move it. If you have an open space, as an example, this room, and you have the golf simulators over there, and all of a sudden they encroach 2 more feet this way. And we don't have people sitting around monitoring, square foot. I was under the intention, we're talking about the sum of that.
Can we rephrase it as the establishment's footprint? Which would be the boundary of the building that the establishment is housing?
Well, if you say footprint, then they could go up and have multiple levels.
I guess what is,
What if we say where the space of the entire use is under 30,000? Does that help?
Yes, that's what I'm getting at. So we don't have to have we don't have square footage police up there every 10 minutes.
Yeah,
Well, that's not the point I made. The point I'm trying to make is, so they come in and they say, I want to apply for my bowling alley or theater, arcade, whatever, and it's 10,000 square feet. But I also have a restaurant,
Right.
which is a CU, and that's another 10,000 square feet. You don't want that. You want the entire, I assume you want the
I
entire.
want everything that they're using within the footprint of that plan that they're submitting to be, if we say 10,000 square feet, it's 10,000 square feet. And they could shift it 5 feet that way, this way, over the course of time or whatever, as long as the sum, in my opinion, my understanding, I just want it
Okay,
very
how about
clear.
where the space of the use and all other associated uses are under 30,000 square feet? Because the restaurant is associated with it. Anything you would come in with and apply for at the same time. Does that work? We hate to draft on the fly like this, but that's,
That's
you want to
fine.
do it tonight, that's the way we want to do
We
it.
say 30 now?
Well, the
Everything?
use, which is the
10.
theater.
Okay,
Yeah.
10.
Did I say
30?
30? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
no, we're kidding.
10,000.
Everybody's,
That's fine with me.
Other associated
Okay.
uses.
I'm gonna open it back up into the public.
And while you're coming up, let me answer a question, if I may. It won't disturb your thought, will it?
No, sir.
Someone asked, can we make this change? Because there were other changes. There are certain rules you could make at a public hearing as to what changes are allowed, not allowed. You can be more restrictive, you can't be less restrictive. So if we had written it 30 and you wanted to make it 50, I'd say we have to go back to public hearing because we've made it more. The landmark case was someone came in 5 acre zoning and they asked for 1 acre zoning. And the plan commission and village board changed it to 3 acre zoning, and the court said that was fine. You didn't have to give a new hearing. If you had gone from, 10 acres, then you would have to, you gave them less than what they wanted, and the public should have been put on notice. And so we're giving less by going to restricting it to the 10,000.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I appreciate you guys' feedback and your direction that you're heading. I'm okay with the 10,000. The other thing that I mentioned in the handout that I passed around was item 3 on page 2. There's a section in this proposed ordinance at section 2 that says that all ordinances or parts of ordinances of whose terms conflict with the provisions of this ordinance will be repealed. And I don't know what you're repealing when you do that. And I don't want to make sure that you guys know what you're repealing when you do that.
There has not been legal review of the ordinance. We usually wait. The clerk wrote the ordinance based on a model that you had, correct? That's
Yep,
my understanding.
this was written everything other than the newly created subsection LL was reviewed by Attorney Macy when we did this for Mudjackers.
So this is to reference everything within this portion of the ordinance. It's not
Correct.
everywhere in the code for every single.
Correct.
Yeah, that actually comes from the codifiers. When you rewrite the entire zoning code, they want to make it clear, and that language comes from there. We can look at it, and if we feel that it's not needed, we can strike it. Make it subject to legal staff review. Sometimes we will just say make it subject to final, I don't care who's the clerks, the administrator, but Orin and I'll look at it and give, let's make it subject to the clerk putting it in final form. Everybody comfortable with that?
Yes.
She'll look to Orin and I to comment on it further.
Yeah.
Yes, right. Just so it's clear, this is the intent is on the B2.
It is kind of
zoning,
wishy-washy.
And this is what we're looking to work on, nothing else. And, okay. All right, Paul and Mark, you good with that?
Yes, I'm good.
Yes,
Right.
Jill, good.
Can I just clarify on the final wording? Is that okay? So I've got theaters, arcades, video game parlors, and other indoor amusement places where the entire space of the use and all other associated uses is 10,000 square feet or under. All which must be located inside of a building. And then the remainder of the paragraph. Is that correct?
Fine with that.
That on the ordinance.
Is the ordinance in there?
Yep, last page. Of what,
Small thing.
yep,
Yep, right there on page 1. Right here.
Orin Scott.
I didn't like where you didn't have, Sussex reads where the space of the use is under 10,000 square feet. So you had the word use in a different place, and I'm not sure that worked, so.
Where the entire space of the use and all other associated uses is 10,000 square feet. Is under 10,000 square feet?
Yes,
Okay, got it.
that's the,
So all the pieces and parts have to be under 10,000 square feet, and it clearly states that.
the use and all other associated uses. The intent is, and I think it's helpful that the next sentence says that it's subject to a site plan and plan of operation. So it means you come in with a site plan and plan of operation, or a CU and a site plan and plan of operation for one of these aforementioned uses. We're gonna look to the totality of the situation.
And that does not include parking. We gotta, do we say within the building?
Yes,
Yes, we do.
Okay, that's all I.
Yes, yes, we do.
Fine.
Questions from the commission? All right, I'll open up one more time then to the public. Is there any comments? Anyone on Zoom that's come on? Doesn't look like it.
Nope.
Anything else from the applicant at this point? All right. Comments on? Close this public hearing then at 7:16. Wow. And then I'll lead us to our special joint village board and plan commission meeting. Call the order at 7:16. We have new business A, discussion and necessary action regarding proposed amendment to the Lisbon zoning code in particular, but not limited. Section 25 sub B regarding permitted uses in the B2 local business district. We have the plan commission action and recommendation to the village board. So we will be looking for a motion on what we just discussed. Or any discussion pertaining or limited to the discussion in the public hearing.
I'll give it a shot. I move to approve the proposed amendment to the Lisbon zoning code in particular, but not limited to section 25 paren B regarding permitted uses in the B2 local business district. And recommendation to the village board of the same with planner comments and notes.
And the
That's all right.
changes,
And the changes.
I'll change this, I think. Is there a second to that?
I'll second it.
Second by Sherry, discussion? Should cover everything we discussed tonight with the changes. All right. This is just for the planning commission at this moment. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimous. All right, now we have the village board action regarding ordinance 2024-05 to create chapter 11, section 25 sub B sub 2 LL, the Village of Lisbon zoning code related to indoor amusement places. Any discussion from the village board limited to everything that was discussed in the public hearing tonight? Anything for you, Paula?
No, I'm good, Joe. Thanks.
Anything for you, Mark?
No further comments.
All right, so then we'd be looking for a motion then on ordinance 2024-05 from the village board. I'll make the motion to approve ordinance 2024-05.
As amended,
I'm sorry,
as amended.
as amended. Yeah, it should be what the board, the plan commission just recommended.
Second.
Subject to the final language being approved by the village.
Motion would include that. Second, okay with that?
I concur.
All right, any final discussion? All in favor from the village board, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Thank you. All right, and we're looking for adjournment from the village board.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll
second.
Adjourn. Mark seconds.
Yep.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. The village board is adjourned at 7:19. Thank you. All right, then we will go into the regular plan commission. We have another public hearing tonight. Plan commission is also present. This was given that a public hearing will be held by the Lisbon Plan Commission on Wednesday, February 28th, 2024, during the regular plan commission meeting, which immediately followed the joint village board meeting and plan commission meeting at the Richard Young Fire Station, North 54 West 26455 Lisbon Road, to solicit public comments on the request by, I'm sorry if I screw this last name up. Is it Ram Subi?
Ram Subedi.
Subidi and Gary Nabar? Nybar? That was close, sorry. For party time, golf and sports bar for the conditional use permit for a restaurant and tavern in the B2 local business district to be constructed within 3 suites of the existing County Line Plaza building located at North 95 West 25901 County Line Road, LSBT 0158.994.011. Orin or the applicant, whoever's starting off.
I can start. So the proposal here for consideration and our public hearing is for a conditional use. The B2 district allows restaurants and taverns as a conditional use. Again, this would be in association with the proposed golf simulator use, which would be a permitted use now, subject to the size requirements we just discussed at the previous public hearing. The petitioner, again, is also the owner of the property here, which is the County Line Plaza Shopping Center. The proposal is for an approximately 5,243 square foot tenant space, which combines several of the suites on the west end of this development. There would be approximately 6 golf simulator bays, 128 off-street parking spaces exist within the shopping center development, 5 ADA accessible stalls. There's an accessory dumpster enclosure, and there's a white 6-foot fence screening the south and east sides of the property. The property zoned B2 is consistent with the land use of commercial for the property. The petitioner has responded to all of the specific conditional use standards for restaurants, supper clubs, lake resorts, taverns, dance halls, pool halls, bowling alleys, and similar uses, and also the village's general conditional use standards. These spaces that they're occupying are currently vacant. The petitioner has stated in his conditional use response answers that this would be a benefit to the community because it's, utilizing this currently vacant space, which is not beneficial to the area because it's not generating tax base right now with nobody in it, and putting some life back into that shopping center is his desire. So he's come up with this business plan to do that himself with his partner. The layout, which we'll get into, is pretty straightforward. There'd be a bar kind of towards the front end of the building. There'd be a little lounge area. You'd have the golf simulators kind of around the outskirts of the space, and there'd be some seating in the middle for tables. Again, overall space is maybe a third of this shopping center currently. There's no plans for the former drive-through from the bank currently. Everything's contained within the space. The conditions that I've got laid out are pretty straightforward, but one of the conditional use standards for restaurants, supper clubs, lake resorts, taverns, dance halls, pool halls, bowling alleys, etc., specifically requires there to be 6-foot landscape plantings screening the development. And again, this development has a 6-foot fence, but there's no evergreen plantings on their side of the fence. I just went out there before the meeting to take a look at this. The neighbors immediately to the south of where these tenant spaces are have evergreen trees on their own properties that actually make a very nice buffer, but they're not on this property. And so that's something that the Plan Commission has to consider as part of this. I've put in a condition that basically states a landscape plan prepared by a registered landscape architect and depicting the location of planting screens at least 6 feet high in initial height between any abutting residential district and the proposed tavern and restaurant use in accordance with section 4H26C of the zoning ordinance shall be prepared and submitted to the village planner for review and approval prior to issuance of a conditional use permit. And then I've got some other boilerplate conditions, like any business signage being required to come back for approval through the village sign permit application process. Et cetera. But the one specific condition, again, is pertaining to that specific conditional use standard for these types of uses. I did take some pictures while I was out there, which I'd like to bring up. Okay, so here's the front of the tenant space where the proposed use would be located. It's a very nice building, as you can see. The Oh, yes, I can. Okay. Here's the side of the building. This is where you can really see some of those trees on the adjacent properties to the south. And you can see the white fence as well. As I continued around on the outside of the drive-through lane. Again, you can see the fence. You can see these trees. And if we keep going, there's kind of a view looking down the back side of the property. Down along that fence, you can see there's another neighbor that has some evergreen trees, but really we'd just be looking at this area over here, which would be immediately behind the suites where this use is proposed, which A, B, and C, I think, are the suites that are involved here. So again, this specific conditional use standard states it's letter C, which is on page 2 of my staff review for the CU. States that a planting screen of at least 6 feet in initial height shall be provided between any abutting residential district and the proposed conditional use. The Plan Commission may require additional screening. A planting plan prepared by a registered landscape architect shall be submitted for review and approval as a condition of approval. That's what the code says. So in this case, there's a fence. The neighbors have existing plantings, but there should be something on this property. So I'm prescribing that they install some landscape plantings, particularly evergreens that'll screen year round on the north side of the fence, which would be the development side of that white fence. And, we'd be looking at maybe 4 or 5 evergreen trees that are, maybe a Norway spruce, or again, something that skirts to the ground. Essentially what I would be prescribing.
Good.
I would prefer that. You can't be using evergreens on somebody else's property to comply with an ordinance. You need to pay. Plus, it would give a double buffer too if there's any additional noise to those residences.
The only thing I would have maybe that changed my mind would have been if the trees were too close, that would have harmed the other trees, but they're not gonna be, so.
There's plenty of room between that fence. and
Yeah, there's plenty, I'm looking at it, yeah, there's tons of room there, so it's not a problem.
Sorry, Alex.
My legal recommendation would be that any condition to approve would be then subject to a landscaping plan being submitted to and approved and subject to the approval of the planner and then planting of the same, and you'll need to give a time limit from by which they have to plant them. Just you have some guidance in that regard.
No,
Anything for the applicant at this time? It is a public hearing again, so we're gonna open it up to the public and then there can be some questions need to be answered.
No questions, I think those trees would probably add a little bit more, screening, and we respect the privacy of, our neighbors to the west, and, Orin made a very, very valid point. I appreciate that. We'll be complying with the, 4 or 5 trees, certified by the, registered landscape architect, we could bring that as an approval. And let-
Timeframe? What about a time frame to have them planted? What
Um,
would you be requesting?
probably, 3, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, depending on.
We're not
Don't say,
really
no, you're not gonna go
planting
out there.
season
to-
yet.
I was gonna
How about completion of the, as an example, the completion of the landscaping by June first?
Yeah, I mean, obviously,
Right.
those will be, as a conditional use before, prior to, probably the Lisbon issued occupancy, you probably need those installed, and we plan to, occupy in October, so sometime in the
You're
summer.
planning in October.
Correct.
Okay, well, you got plenty of time to get them in there
Yes.
before that,
Oh, he's not occupying? They're
not
not
until
opening?
October.
Well, why don't we just say prior to occupancy?
Correct. That's what I was requesting for.
People comfortable with that? I mean, if something falls through and they don't occupy, would they?
Can't open the door till you get them up.
Yeah, I
There
just
you
wanted to
go.
be sure he was within the planting season.
Yeah.
Realize it's gonna be that
Right.
hot.
Not taking
Then we'll have to
2,000
paint them
down.
green, they will be evergreen. That's kidding.
Have I got-
Anything else you wish to add at this time?
No.
need a permit if we want to put Christmas lights on?
No, we don't. Okay.
Anything else from the commission at this time before we open up? the public? Okay. At this time, we'll open up the public comment then.
6-foot trees right out back.
I like that. Makes my minutes easier.
And paper, thank you.
Thank you.
And Teresa Nelson in 95 W25850 Riverview Drive. If you notice the numbers, I'm directly behind that property. And the trees that Mr. Sumwell took, that he said were down there a ways, those are mine. So that fence, that property does abut my property. I rise in opposition to this proposed conditional use permit for several reasons, but I want to give you guys a brief history lesson. Where the strip mall stands now used to be an empty field where hot air balloons took off on the weekends. I used to take my son out there and watch them. The original owner of the mall wanted a 5-unit mall, but the town board at the time wanted a 10-unit mall to get more property taxes. A 10-unit mall required a separate parking lot / roof runoff detention pond system because we don't have municipal water or sewer. However, in order to put that in, the land directly behind my home, which was zoned R2 residential, had to be rezoned to B2 business district. That's how that mall went in. I was told by the town chairman at the time that no bar or restaurant would ever go into that mall. There were concerns about water quality, with, you can imagine, hundreds of people going to the bathroom and flushing into our system. I don't know what size the wellhead is for that building. And whether or not it can support a restaurant, but I was told that it would never go in. I did attend those meetings back then, and I'd ask you guys to pull up your archives and review the meeting and hearing minutes back then to identify the conditions that were associated with that mall even being built. The dentist office, the liquor store, and the spa, the bank before it, and the Snap Fitness, none of them were conditional use. The Subway restaurant that was in there, because it was a restaurant, was subject to a conditional use, and we didn't object to it because they weren't cooking with grease fryers, griddles, and that kind of thing. They weren't making bar food, they were making cold cut sandwiches. And sadly, they didn't survive. I did visit that business, but anyway, the reasons that I have here tonight, I went through the application that was submitted to you. And under the general conditions and answers at paragraph G, it says, and I quote, the proposed use adds value to the immediate neighborhood by increasing the occupancy of a half vacant property that is currently hurting property values in the neighborhood. That's a self-serving statement, and that's not enough. Please make them prove that. I would much rather live behind a half vacant strip mall than live behind a bar and restaurant spewing noise, crime, including drunken drivers, stench and vermin next to my property. And I'm quite certain I'm not alone on that. Rather than make me prove that diminished value of my property and quality of life, make them prove the value of our homes and quality of our lives will go up by their mere presence. While we now abut or are adjacent to the strip mall, we were here first. Secondly, the general conditions at answer E says there's adequate parking on site. On page 3 of the application, it tells us there are 100 parking spaces available. I heard 128 tonight. 28 of those parking spaces are behind the building, and if you look at their plan, those are designated as employee parking. There are other businesses in that mall that need parking spaces. There's only 100 spaces out front. I don't even know what the proposed capacity for this establishment is. I didn't even know what size it was until tonight. And I didn't see the capacity in the application. Is 100 spaces for it alone even enough, let alone the other businesses? Also on page 3 of the application, they tell us that there will be no anticipated odors, smoke, dust, or noise. Yet they plan to sell bar food. Are they going to have a grill? Are they going to have a grease fryer? Where's the kitchen going to exhaust to? I saw the plan that the kitchen's in the back of the building. It'll blow right at my neighbors. And that grease will waft on the westerly wind and land on my house. Will you demand that they install some type of filtration so that our homes that abut this property don't become covered in grease and stench? The only way to prevent the stink and smoke is if the kitchen sells only cold cut sandwiches or air fried foods. If you have any inkling of allowing this to move forward, please make that a condition. But nothing says quiet like a bunch of drunks stumbling out of an establishment after a hearty round of golf, am I right? I feel sorry for the man who owns the liquor store. He'll have to share a common wall with 3 of the golf simulator rooms. I can only imagine the whooping and hollering and smacking around as the patrons take their swings. That they're not putting it next to the dentist office isn't necessarily a high point. On page 6 of the application, we're told they won't use any dumpsters. Oh, really? I managed a bar. I managed Uncle Johnny's, which is 1/10 of a mile down the road. And you use dumpsters a lot. There are 2 exterior dumpsters for the entire mall right now. I brought you guys a photo. I also brought several photos of the roof and parking lot drainage area for this strip mall that I took a few days ago. One can only imagine how much worse it would be with a bar or restaurant dropping their trash out there every night. There's only 2 dumpsters for the whole mall. These photographs, and I have several of them, and I'll leave them with you tonight. I want you to know that this is a couple days ago when it was 60 degrees out. What you're seeing on this lawn is not snow. It's garbage. You know where it ends up? In my pine trees that you took pictures of. Because I'm up at that corner. It all comes right up on underneath there. I don't hate them all. I don't hate the clients that are in it or the businesses that are in it. But that's not a bar and restaurant. How many new rodents do you suppose will swarm the area when they get a whiff of rotting food and molding liquor spilling from mostly empty bottles that will be added to those 2 dumpsters? We were talked about, I have put in here in a paragraph 5 about the proposed conditional use not being under B2. I realize you guys are addressing that, so I'm going to just kind of skip over that. My issue, ma'am, you asked earlier tonight, it's not with the zoning code. It's with a bar being behind my house. The party time golf and sports bar would be in violation of chapter 25 of the village ordinances. I assume they want to seek a class B liquor license since the application says they intend to sell alcohol at this site. Section 2509 requires that no liquor license shall be issued to a person or agent for a corporation unless that person or agent has resided in the town continuously for at least 1 year prior to filing for the application. The proposed floor plan includes a gaming lounge, and the application indicates there will be game machines on site, 4 or 5 machines alongside the kitchen and hallway. These are wholly separate from the proposed 6 golf simulators per the floor plan, so the golf simulators cannot be what those are in reference to. However, section 2511, paragraph N of your codes prohibits gambling, including quote, slot machines or any similar devices of chance are prohibited and shall not be kept on the premises. That's under your liquor statutes. Both of those provisions are. Of note, chapter 11, section 3, paragraph S1F is a finding of fact in your current ordinances that contains this information, quote, based upon its review of materials linking alcohol consumption and high-risk sexual behavior and materials linking alcohol consumption and crimes such as sexual assault, the town finds that a geographic separation, and it goes on, and you know what it's talking about here? Adult-oriented establishments and dirty bookstores and strip bars. It says the separation between the selling of liquor and those businesses. But this paragraph is not talking about adult bookstores. A review of the materials links alcohol consumption to high-risk behavior and materials linking alcohol consumption and crimes such as sexual assault. This is finding a fact. This isn't somebody's personal opinion from 2006. Chapter 11, section 4D of your code says the final determination and basis for approval or denial of a cup starts out with the Plan Commission or town board, and I'm assuming that this is still applicable to you guys because I think I heard the village just adopted all the town's regulations, but it says you shall base your determination on the potential effect of such use on the health, general welfare, and safety of the town and the immediate neighborhood, as well as the spirit and intent of the ordinance. This proposed development seems like a kind of fun place to visit, and I want you guys to know that I have no objection about your business. I just don't want that going on behind my home. And I think a way to get around that would be if you give them a condition that they will never get a Class B liquor license. Let everything else go in. I don't know if they'd be interested in that or not. So if they aren't, I would implore you to deny this conditional use permit and suggest the planners look for opportunities on properties elsewhere in the village that are zoned as B3 or B4 that aren't next to residential areas. Perhaps something is available on the Leeds property. Not too long ago, the town was selling lots there for only $1. Thank you.
Anyone else on Zoom?
Nope.
Okay, I'll get back up to the commission here. What do we have that was on this? Do we have anything available for when this facility was built? What is the village's legal requirement for this site, I guess, would be the next question I would have.
Have anything?
I don't know. I'm asking if you know if we have any restrictions that were originally placed on this strip mall.
I don't know of any. Orin, is that something that you look at when you do a review for an application?
I don't have any records from when this was installed, no.
I guess my question on that would be, is there any? I mean, we have our current zoning right now, but is there potential that when this was built, would there have been any specific requirements that would have been put on? I wasn't around. There's actually one I wasn't around for.
Oh, Jerry, I believe.
Yeah. It looks like it was between 2005 and 2007 when it was built.
Before my time in the last time.
Yeah. 7 or 8.
I don't remember there being any restrictions, so to speak. But my recollection is that there was two separate lots. One was a B2, one was an R1. They rezoned the R1 to the B2. And I know it was several meetings. It went on for quite a while. And then after they rezoned the R1 to the B2, they combined the two lots. And then that's how they got the mall on there. And I don't know if you can look that up on the tax records or how far back you go. But that's my recollection. It used to be used as a parking lot for the church that's right across the street. I'm not saying it wasn't also used for balloon traffic. I'm just saying that I remember it being used for the church across the street when they had their annual rummage sale.
Mhm.
Farmer's Field.
As we all were at one time.
Yep.
Were restrictions placed on the property, wouldn't they have not been recorded on the deed? I know that's a facetious question, but
Probably not on the deed.
That time I was not on the plan commission, but I was asked to attend. And I don't remember any restrictions.
Trying to look and see if there are any deed restrictions, but I'm having a hard time.
December 10th, 2008. Temporary limited easements. See anything on there? I guess, John, how would we normally proceed at that point with?
Well, you'd have to adjourn the public hearing and direct the staff to investigate as best they can. We would not have reviewed deed restrictions or, prior minutes or conditional rezonings. I mean, that just isn't part of our normal, prep for this until such issues arise,
Sure.
No deed restrictions recorded.
Yeah, I see nothing in the send either. How the commission like to proceed? And we have other questions to talk about here too, but I mean, is this something? Yeah, I'm gonna be frank, a promise from a town chairman is one thing if it's in writing or not in writing. I mean, they should be the same. I mean, to me, a handshake is a handshake.
If
but-
it's part of the conditions put on the site plan, then that I would think we'd have to look at, but if it was just the commission saying we're not. Do this on record. We can't.
doesn't mean anything.
Hearsay, unfortunately, unless there's some kind of recording back then or something, but
Even then, if it wasn't made a condition of the approval, it doesn't mean anything.
right. What with this, with the alcohol license restrictions, can you run us through that? As far as a liquor license?
Well, I guess there's the potentiality of putting such a condition on a conditional use. There's the new conditional use law that we have.
I just mean in general with the
Oh,
liquor license.
well, no one has a right to a liquor license.
Right.
I don't even know how many we have available, but.
It would be a reserve.
So we have a reserve license available, those are $10,000. And plus the normal costs. But that's assume our rate, that's gonna be more than that, can't be less than that. And you have no right to a liquor license, you can apply and it's up to the board as to whether to grant it. You have a liquor license, so you do have rights and it's very difficult to take away.
discussion about gaming machines. Gaming machines are legal, gambling machines are not.
These are amusement machines, they are not.
Come on, if it's, step up if you would.
So first of all, this is not a regular bar. Our main goal is to promote golf. You know, I'm not good at it, but you know, I'm a vivid golfer. We even golfed yesterday, so is Gary. And Connie as well. Our main goal is to promote golf. We are not going to be bunch of, you know, drunk people watching, you know, adult, you know, books that, you know, what she referred to, none of those. This is a networking business class bar. That's why I believe drawing that community into that particular property, into the surrounding area would add value to the neighborhood. And so as that's what our intent, and you know, people probably, you know, everybody loves it in beer when they are in a golf course or not. So we will be applying for a liquor license, and these gaming machines that we are referring to, they are amusement machines.
Payout.
No payout.
A lot of people say that, but I mean, gambling's illegal.
Yes, of course.
I mean,
We can't enforce.
Right.
Only the state. Don't want to mislead anybody. If there's a gambling machine in there, our officers have no jurisdiction. That's only state jurisdiction.
Correct. That's a Department of Revenue jurisdiction. I understand that, yes. And I have a, you know, a follow-up question into the handshake is a handshake, you know, that you talked about. I mean,
well, that's
I was
for
kind
me.
of, yeah.
When I make a
understand.
deal, if I try to make a deal with somebody here, I try to enforce that in writing because
Understood,
otherwise it's
understood. But you know,
unfortunate, but-
before we bought the property, you know, I remember reading at the title, and I do not recall reading any kind of restrictions on it, and imposing the restriction now because there was a handshake in the past would probably surprising.
Yeah, we don't see anything on the deed.
Understood. Thank you.
And I don't know that there'd be.
So if you purchased the property from the original builder, correct?
Correct. I brought it, you know,
Then
versus,
you would have had to get a new site plan or plan of, or-
Site plan of operation.
so if there was any discussion, that would have had to been done at that time, no?
No, just because you buy a building doesn't mean you get a site plan, a plan of operation. If all the tenants are still the same tenants and they've all been legally approved.
there was no alteration or change of use, so the new plan of operation is not required.
Make sure within legal rights here. I mean, if something was laid in the plan commission meeting in 2007 for this, what is our legal requirement on that being? I mean, if we have something in writing,
Well, if there was a conditional rezoning, normally that's noted on the map, but county was monitoring all of that to the best of my knowledge at that time.
Right.
So I don't know whether they would have noted that, you know. Conditional rezoning now, there's a star that shows up, you know, on the GIS or something that try to tell us that there's some conditions on there, give us some kind of warning. But that wouldn't be filed with the register of deeds necessarily.
so but if we have a conditional rezoning back when this was done and there is conditions on there, that is something that carries to the next property owner,
Oh, yes,
just to be clear.
they run with the land, yeah.
So,
Yeah, in sort of deed restriction, you know, any type of stipulation would survive. Yeah, I get it, but I don't think this property did have any of those.
well, and this one John is talking about would not have been on this document, it would have been something
Correct.
done at the village, town end back then, village end now, so we have to go back
Correct.
and try to just examine it
Enforce
to
it,
make
that
sure.
is, of course.
Because there's a lot of things with rights here. Neighbors have rights, owners have rights. I mean, there's a
get
lot of rights at play here and we
Yes.
gotta. We are the lucky ones that get to balance those. So,
Difficult job, I get it. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
but it's all valid, so.
Understood.
Do we have minutes going back that far from the meetings?
Yes.
The other thing I would note is you were a town at the time and the county would have had to approve so there would be a resolution from the county approving the ordinance.
Which they for sure will have.
They will definitely have.
Right.
have that, yes. That was the plan.
Okay, so. I would like staff to review that. Is it commission in favor of that?
Well, that's fine. It's the only way they're gonna well, we're not gonna find out for sure. There's no guarantee on any of the stuff. But the question is that review time of staff part of their responsibility for fees? I just want to make sure the record's clear on that. Are they gonna be paying for the staff's time to review all this stuff? Cause this is gonna take more than an hour.
I don't know. How are we billing that?
For
Reviewing this?
contracted staff, yes, not for in-house staff.
Right, I understand that.
Mhm.
Okay, as long as you understand that, I mean, you're gonna, cause this is gonna take some time because we're gonna have to do a records research by administrative staff.
So the internal staff from the village hall,
Right.
that's us.
I understand,
Right.
but what I'm getting at is eventually somebody's going to write an opinion on this thing and that's gonna have some price involved with it. I just wanna make sure the applicant is aware that they're gonna have to they're gonna get a bill for this.
Okay.
This is gonna take some time to get it done, and the answer may be nobody knows. There may be no record of it.
Well, we're gonna-
Well, we're gonna check the ordinance and we're gonna check the minutes. I don't know that unless you direct us to do anything further than that, that's all we're gonna do. Is that, I mean, you give us guidance here if, you know, I can't think of anything else that we would actually check other than for the minutes and the actual ordinance. The ordinance has to also exist because we have to keep them in chronological order. That's.
We would have Lisbon's rezone ordinance and then the county's rezone ordinance, both of which we can bring in copies of for the plan commission to view.
But if what Ms. Nelson is talking about was not part of the rezone, it was part of the site plan. That would be, it should be in the meeting minutes from whenever that was approved. If there were stipulations put on.
Site plan of operation is specific to a business. So if it wasn't on a CSM and it wasn't on a rezone,
It doesn't exist.
we can't do anything.
Thank you.
Does the village have any policy for record retention, what the time limit is for record retention?
Yes.
Because that could answer our question right now.
This should be in perpetuity.
For
which-
ordinances
How
and
long we have to keep.
that type of thing, those are kept forever.
Forever, okay.
The general law on record retention is 7 years unless there's an exception. And as long as you've raised that, every document you receive tonight, you have to keep for 7 years unless so, I would strongly recommend you turn them into the clerk. As a courtesy, we allow the petitioner to hand them out. Most communities no longer allow that. Community got burned. So we can hand them out, but if you don't want to retain them for 7 years, turn them into the clerk, please, and we'll make a note that accepted them as a courtesy at the public hearing, but you didn't retain it as a public record.
So what we would have to do tonight then would be we can't adjourn the public hearing, we have to keep it open.
We
And,
could adjourn it to a date certain,
right, to the next month.
right? But we have other things to talk about too, but
Yeah.
it's just, this is one thing we can't answer tonight.
Okay.
The stink, smoke and such. This is the primary reason why in a restaurant is a condition of use, to be honest, I think.
Hi, Gary Nybauer. Thank you for listening to our petition. I just wanna add a little bit to what Ram said and hopefully put you at ease a little bit about our business plan. Again, our business plan is based around golf. We're avid golfers and we kind of kidded around and saying we want this to be the country club of an indoor place. Okay, so it's a place where people are going and you know, talking business and hanging out. As far as the bar side of it goes, anyone who golfs, you know, a round of golf takes 4 to 5 hours. Simulators, you cut that down a little bit, but if someone's gonna play a round of golf in the simulator, it's typically still 3 to 4 hours. So we want to provide some beverages there and some light food for them to enjoy. As far as the stink and the smell and all that kind of stuff, we don't plan on having any of that type of food. We don't plan on having any type of fryer food. Air fryer, yes, but we don't plan on having any type of fish fries or anything that's gonna have an exhaust fan that's gonna produce any type of smell. Okay, a pizza, you know, some fryer food and that's it. You know,
Saying that you're gonna be required to have a kitchen vent for.
correct. I mean, I don't know your local codes on that, on what would have to be done with that, but that's not the intent. The intent is some light, some easy food, maybe a hot dog, maybe some nachos, maybe some pizza. Other than that, we're not gonna have burgers going. We're not gonna have any type of French fries and a fryer or a fish fry. That's not the intent. The intent is just some quick, easy, fast food while people are enjoying their time. Also, as far as the drunkenness part of it goes, we are gonna be very adamant to watch that. Cause I do respect the people in that area and we are gonna respect that, like with the licensed bartenders and all that kind of stuff. I don't want that, you know, to be honest with you, and any sign of trouble is gonna be taken care of immediately. So that I can assure you that won't happen, okay? So again, that's just the intent, and then we're getting to the food part of it again. It's gonna be light stuff. There's no intent on stuff that Joe Mama sells down the road. Okay, which I think has all the same stuff we're looking for, so. Other than that, thanks for listening.
Let me ask you a question if I may, sir. Have you researched what class of restaurant license you're gonna need from the county?
Did not, because we have not. We're still kind of coming up with our own menu, let's say that. But the intent is very light stuff, nothing heavy.
Well, I suggest since we're gonna adjourn it, that maybe you could research that, and then we could limit it to that type of license. There's different, one is prepackaged and you're just eating stuff. And I
Basically.
don't know if pizza's involved in that, but there are sub sandwiches and things that you
Correct.
can have in that category, and then it goes up from there.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I'm not telling you not
Right.
to ask for a class C if that's what, you know, the type of food you want, you know, is a class C type. I'm just saying it would be helpful if you would research and come back next week with that information. It's
can do that.
easily discernible from the
Right.
website.
Okay,
Right, the building inspector's here, you can, you know, that, you always check to make sure that they're properly building out for the type of license that they're gonna have.
correct.
Yeah.
And I'm in the HVAC business, so I understand how all that works, trust me.
Yeah, and then great. I just think it would be helpful for us to know, once you've done your research, what it shows you would need.
Okay,
I'm not telling you to approve it or not approve it. I'm just saying it would be helpful if you could tell us.
So
okay,
if you're in HVAC business, you probably want to stay away from the hood requirements. if
Correct.
You're frying and everything.
correct,
They're not loose. They're pretty strict.
correct. And that's, you know, that's a whole nother nut you'd have to buy. So I understand the whole hood thing very, very well, so.
Essentially, I'm hearing what you're proposing is air fryer.
Air fryer.
Stuff and.
Air fryer stuff, that's it.
Pizzas, no grill, nothing with a grill.
No, no
nothing
grill,
with a
no
required-
deep fryer, none of that stuff, air fryer stuff.
Okay.
Pretty easy stuff, basically frozen reheated stuff. Okay, good. Thank you.
The dumpsters were brought up. We have a requirement on that. I mean, they cannot overflow. I don't know what our exact ordinance is on that, but. I know if it's overflowing, it's gonna be a problem.
Say that I voice is down.
Questions from the commission at this point? Anything for you, John?
No.
Sherry?
No, I mean, I guess on the dumpster, I'm assuming, because I couldn't tell from the pictures, they're covered, so that's not gonna be like it's open and they're just throwing stuff in that's gonna blow around. As long as the dumpsters are.
I just wanted to add a few things, I forget, I had it in my note that, to address the dumpster. So right now, the property is 45% occupied, even less. So since we are not cooking heavy, kitchen, production, local production there, the Waukesha County requires, food service manager and a regular food, license. Is not a heavy restaurant license. So we will not be hauling a lot of cardboards and that sort of stuff. Our is, small, paper plates served, in the can, and mostly golf related, maybe small trash of the golf balls or the wraps or whatnot. So, and also the frequency of the pickup will be different after we open. So we have once a week pickup there at that site because it's not used. So we'll probably have 2 or 3 times a week pickup. So those containers are, I think, 12 yarders or 8 yarders, 2 of them there. They provide enough room for the businesses, including the party time.
Were you the owner when the previous restaurant use was in the building?
I was the owner while Subway was there.
Okay.
We had once
you
a
have-
week, pickup, and it was just fine. Once in a while, I run into people just bringing their old couches and mattresses, leaving there, and I have to, get an extra pickup. But other than that, just once a week pickup was all fine for us.
We'll open it up for comment again. Good.
A couple of things. Last thing I was writing down, I'll mention first. The Subway, and one of the conditions with them was that their leftover food, their bread, they agreed as a condition to give that to the local food pantry every night. So there wasn't a lot of added garbage with the concern with the dumpsters. And I know it's hard to see that in those photos, but if you drove out there and looked at that field, you'd see garbage. Well, now it snowed on top of it, but it's not necessarily that the dumpsters are overflowing. When the dumpster comes and picks it up, they pick up, I don't know if you've ever seen this, and it makes noise, and they come at 7 a.m. They pick it up and dump it into the back of their truck, and the wind takes it. The lighter stuff, there's soda bottles and plastic and that kind of stuff. And I get that there's gonna be some of that stuff, and I'm not against it, I don't expect everybody to be pristine. I'm concerned about how much more it's gonna be with the bar there. And especially if there's food, refuse and liquor, that it could be drawing more rodents and vermin to that area. I appreciate that they want to have a country club type establishment. And I heard them say that this was for, like business meeting type stuff, but I know that the place is supposed to be, according to their plan, they'd like to be open until 10 p.m. every day and 11 p.m. on the weekends. I own my own business. I don't conduct business till 11 p.m. on the weekends or even 10 p.m. during the weekdays, but neither here nor there. I also heard him say that 3 to 4 hours around for a round of golf, and they're gonna feed and beverage up their customers. I don't blame them for wanting to do that. 3 to 4 hours of drinking gives you a drunk driver coming out of there. And I appreciate that you don't want to have riffraff, but you can't stop that when you're not there. You guys can't be there all the time. And when you got some guy that had too many and just had a great time golfing and he's out in the parking lot hooping and hollering, you can't stop that. I appreciate that you don't want that, but you can't stop it. So those were just some things that I picked up on what he was talking about. One thing I did not hear him say is, what is his capacity for this facility? Because there are only 100 parking spaces. If you're gonna let them park in the back, it's gonna be a drag strip back there. Right now, we don't hear any traffic down there, but it's gonna make a new road. So those are just some of the things that I was curious about. And I will try to do my own research too, to find out, to help you guys. And I'll let, is it Elizabeth, know about what I can find from those meetings back in 2007, 2008.
Clerk is a retainer of the record, so.
Yeah, I'll check my files and see if I can find anything, because I know that there was a lot of discussions, Wendy Landry, Jerry Schmidt. Ron was on that. Brian, what was Ron's last name? Yeah, Ron Everett was on the board. That was the crew that we were dealing with back then. Thank you.
There's nobody on Zoom yet, right?
Correct.
All right. We have an ordinance for littering. And keeping your property clean. I mean, I would anticipate if you have litter on your property, you would be taking care of it. Commission hours of operation, any issues with those hours?
We always pick up the trash. I think it's probably, here and there, a couple of pieces in the snow. When snow melted, came out. As far as the rodent concern, we have a service. They stop by, check it, spray it once a month. And we could increase that frequency if we see any rodents. We don't have any rodents. We have no ants. I'm not one of those slumlords that I could, accommodate any tenants. I'm all about quality. So I don't think the village ever got a phone call or, complaint from the neighbors saying our property is full of trash ever. Yes, we're coming out of winter, things fly, strong winds come in, and it could be from Highway 64 or County Road Q. Is not necessarily from our parking lot. There is a fence that blocks the air and the small trash get trapped in. It's, the nature, you can't stop that.
Or any capacity issues versus parking?
No. Per the code, they're meeting the requirements.
You already have a third-party pest control already associated with the facility, correct?
We do.
Take it outside bait stations, inside bait stations.
Any questions or concerns on the capacity or the parking?
No, they're just, in terms of the pest control risk from the dumpsters and everything with the third party, because we do have there's a third party pest control outside bait station, which I think, I take it probably weekly or bi-weekly, bi-monthly that they come through and assess.
Okay.
No, I guess my only comment would be, I have been in a golf simulator facility and they are not, I didn't see people sitting in there just sitting at the bar. They're there to play golf and it's rather pricey. So I don't think they're gonna be sitting there just to drink.
That is a fact.
Joe, any?
I have nothing.
Brian?
As far as capacity goes, that's actually determined by the architect or engineer who's drawing up the plans. But typically a rule of thumb is 10 square feet per person if it's a restaurant and 7 square feet per person if it's a gathering or a hall or a bar. And that's a good rule of thumb. Now you're kind of a bar, a restaurant and a simulator, but that's a good rule of thumb when you try to figure out how many people you can have maximum. So my best guess is you're probably looking at 30 to 40, maybe 40 people.
Probably. Max
At
50,
the
so
very
in case
most.
somebody had a birthday party and, bunch of their kids and, or, bunch of their other friends or the co-workers come in. So, yeah.
So the 100 parkings, in my opinion, the 100 parking spaces is sufficient.
I wanted to, retract myself a little bit. I, looked at the Google map and counted all these parking spots. And I don't recall if I counted only on the front on all of it in the back. So I'm not exactly, precise if it's 128 parking or more.
Figure that out by the next meeting, I
Yeah.
imagine.
No, I counted it all.
You counted it?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
128 total. And the standard is 1 space for each 200 square feet of gross floor area of customer sales and service, plus 1 space per employee of the largest work shift. I'm applying that standard to the entire lease space referenced.
Okay.
And just as a worst case scenario, and I came out with plus, what you're listing for your largest work shift. 33 off-street parking spaces specifically for, that use would be the high end of what the requirement would be for that use.
Okay.
And it could potentially come down if we get into the, nitpicking the certain components of that on the interior space, but I'm just going off of the broader space.
Okay.
So
The parking lot is big, we
Yep.
probably utilize like 15% of it now.
I was gonna say it's
so-
big and not fully used currently, correct?
And if we, need additional parking, we probably could get rid of the unused portion of the drive-through and create more parkings there because it is a hard surface already. But we
At this,
have,
at this time, you've got plenty of parking spots.
correct, yes.
There's- Okay. Open up for questions again, but so what are we looking for after that would be adjourning to March 20th, the Plan Commission on March 27th, I believe is the next one at 6:30 here at the Richard Young Fire Station.
Correct, March 27th.
I'll reopen any other comments from the public. Teresa, anything else from you? Nobody else on Zoom?
Nope.
Okay, no comments. Right back to the commission then. Any other questions? None. All right, we have to have a motion to adjourn to the. So looking for a motion to adjourn to the Plan Commission meeting on March 27th at 6:30 PM here at the Richard Young Fire Station.
I'll make the motion.
Which was their second,
I'll second.
second by Brian.
During the meeting or?
The hearing.
The meeting.
Yeah. Motion second, we're aware that was adjourning the hearing. Yes, okay. Nice try.
Better,
All right.
I heard wrong.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right. We did that at 8:16. All right, that brings us to our regular Plan Commission meeting then. Item 2 is citizens' comments. Anyone have any citizens' comments, anything on the agenda or anything else?
Thank you all for your time, right?
Thanks. Item 3 is approval of the minutes of the January 24th, 2023 Plan Commission meeting.
So moved.
Moved by Joe, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Sean, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimous. Item 4, new business, A, discussion and necessary action request by Eric Pennington, Terra Ltd. On behalf of Verizon Wireless for approval of site plan of operation amendment for a class 2 co-location of an existing communication tower located on the property at West 275 North 6725 Lake 5 Road, LSBT 0219.994.007.
Applicant is present on Zoom if there are any questions.
Take it.
I can, just as an introduction. So we've seen this property before for a different company's proposed co-location in the past. This cell tower has a enclosure on the west side of the storage facility development. This particular proposal includes not just the co-location of some equipment on the tower, but a small expansion of the enclosure itself. This was forwarded to the board for their determination of whether or not this was a substantial modification. The finding was that it was not. And that's due to the fact that the expansion of the enclosure is the overall size after that will still be under what would be considered a substantial modification per state statute. This proposal does include a backup generator for their particular use and some equipment cabinets on the ground, the associated cables, and in your packet materials are their plan set, which includes an elevation of the tower and a lot of good detailed images to give you a really good idea of what's up there now and what's being proposed. You can see the antenna equipment layout on VZW T-301, and then a good elevation of the tower on VZW T-201. Just to give you an idea, when we say it's going to be, at like 150 feet, overall tower is approximately 180 feet. So you can see where the existing tenants have their equipment located on the tower and where this equipment will be located, which is shown in red on the plans provided. And then there's also details for the site plan and the associated grading plan. So the bump out of the enclosure means that they'll be taking down some of the existing fence and adding fence around the proposed area. There's erosion control and silt fencing measures that are shown on the grading plan. Like Lisa said, the applicant's agent is available via Zoom if there's any questions from the commission.
All right, thank you. Anything from the applicant?
No, I think that sums it up.
Questions from the commission? Any of you, Sean?
No, I just, drive by it, after the wind today, I take, it looks like we've done a very thorough assessment of all the, weather conditions that could affect it, especially with the added weight.
Jared?
No, I'm good.
Joe?
I didn't realize that thing was 179 feet tall and I drove out of my driveway this afternoon. But I have no questions.
I have no question.
Anything else from staff at this point?
Nope.
Is there a motion on this? Wait,
I'll make a motion of approval of the site plan and plan of operation as submitted with including the comments, planner comments, inclusion of plan comments in the approval.
second,
Maybe my streaming.
is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Brian. Any discussion? Staff, anything to cover everything?
Yep.
No comments, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimous.
Thank you, Eric.
Okay, thank you. You guys have a good night.
Thanks. Item B, discussion necessary action on the request by Ram Sabiti and Gary Niebuhr. Nibor, I did it twice, I'm sorry. It's because we had too long in between. Yeah, I respect that. For Party Time Golf and Sports Bar for property located at North 95 West 25901 County Road Q, LSBT 0158.994.0 for the following conditional use permit for a restaurant tavern in the B2 local business district and site plan of operation for an indoor golf simulator restaurant tavern in the B2 local business zoning district. As we did adjourn the public hearing to the next plan commission meeting, is there anything we should say at this point, or just
Put this on next month's agenda.
we adjourn or table it, John?
Well, I would. Either one, you can table it until next.
Motion to table until the next plan commission meeting?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Joe, seconded by Sherry, no discussion on a table, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimous into the next plan commission meeting. Item C, discussion only on topics to be addressed in timeline for zoning code update.
Right.
Did you do both of them?
Motion was for both.
Correct.
Yeah, I just didn't know if anybody had any comments, and I apologize. I thought we were learning to see you. Any comments for the petitioners on the site plan and plan of operation that we've not talked about, so they're better prepared for next month?
I have nothing.
I just wondered if there's anything unique about the site plan and plan of operation, different than what you talked about of the CU that someone had wanted to bring to their attention.
I have a comment.
Hang on, do we table the first one or both? Because if we table both, we're gonna.
Both.
All right, so we'd have to have a motion to reconsider the table then.
Well, I just open it up for comments, it's.
Just tell me the proper way to do it.
Let's just make a motion to allow the petitioner to make a comment, since we didn't allow him to do so.
So moved, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Sherry, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Sean, Sherry?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries, go ahead.
So we anticipated, an approval today and our, work schedule follows accordingly. So we're tabling this on the next, plan commission agenda. So we are going to explore on what type of food use, permit or licensing we may need from the county, or is it from the village?
We're gonna be very cautious here and only discuss the site plan of operation. Is this encompassed in that or the CU? Well, he's making comments, I guess, so we're not responding.
Yeah, the answer is the county.
Okay.
County gives restaurant license.
Yeah, I mean, I do own other businesses within Waukesha County. I live in Waukesha County and, to the best of my knowledge, retail food, off premises, there's only one type of license, I believe, but, I will explore more into that.
I can call you tomorrow for the just logistics of building permits.
Okay. So is there anything that we could do so we could, get on our, space preparation, so we don't have to alter a lot of our schedule?
I think. Contact the clerk tomorrow. That's what we would tell you.
Understood. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Well, we're not gonna get into all of that tonight, you'll send them to this inspector,
Yes,
the planner, or, wherever
Correct.
you filter it. To save them money.
Okay. Good. Everybody's good then? All right, then item C is discussion only on topics to be addressed in timeline for zoning code update.
So I've got a memo in the packet here. I just wanted you all,
You're free to go.
yeah.
We're not gonna talk about you anymore.
No, no, we won't talk about you after you leave.
Not in front of you anyway.
No.
And yet I lose another one as soon as we're gonna talk about zoning.
Right.
I should have paid attention.
Unless you have insomnia, you can stay around.
Thanks again.
So we're kicking off this update to the zoning code that we've been talking about since at least I came on board, and probably you guys for a while before that. So I just wanted you all to have a good understanding of what this project was going to entail and what your role in it was going to be. So my memo here just has a little background primer on zoning. The state authorizes municipalities to have zoning. You have to choose to do it. The state requires, so the village has general zoning. That is what our zoning ordinance is. We also have, which the state requires, shoreline zoning, shoreline wetland zoning, and floodplain zoning. We checked all those boxes recently, so that's not going to be a part of this update. But we will be looking at language that might, need to be cleaned up associated with the work we already did on those topics. Zoning ordinance contains two legally adopted components, a map or a series of maps, and the text. The map divides a community into different zoning districts, such as residential, commercial, industrial, and agricultural. The text of the ordinance spells out uniform rules that apply to each zoning district, including uses of land, permitted, conditional, and prohibited uses, dimensional standards, lot size, frontage, setbacks, building height, bulk floor area, and the density of development. The village is looking to complete an update to its Chapter 11 zoning ordinance to provide a more user-friendly code for the public and village staff. The Village Plan Commission will serve as the steering committee for the zoning code update. We've got a recommended scope in here that we would provide project management and ongoing coordination with village staff. There would be village steering committee meetings with the Plan Commission. We would provide an evaluation and analysis of existing ordinance for updates, draft ordinance text, tables, and graphics, revision to the ordinance text, tables, and graphics, and then a presentation at a public hearing, and village board adoption. We would be available at that meeting should there be questions from the board. So the committee objectives are just to collaborate with the project team on the zoning code update. The project team is Foth and your village staff. Share your institutional knowledge and provide background information, review the various draft of the code that we bring to you and provide feedback to the project team. And then you're functioning as project ambassador to the public. If you see your neighbors out and about and they have questions, direct them to staff or myself or bring them back to the group. And speak highly of the village and its zoning. So under evaluation, number 2 on page 2 of Foth's memo, we've listed some things that have come to mind from our internal lists that we had of discussions that have taken place over the years. So I'm not gonna go through all of these, but you have them so that you can look at them and all that we're looking for is, do you have more information that you would like to see that's not mentioned here? And you don't have to state it now or forever hold your peace. You can email me or Elisa and let us know. So that would be number 3, general discussion on your personal focus areas or things that you, opportunities you see for the code.
Chairman, I have a question for the planner. Do we have something in there? Is my understanding the village board did make the decision that the village is gonna be in charge of and review and approve reclamation plans for quarries. Do we have what's necessary in the zoning code, or do we need to add anything in there?
We can look at the specific standards in section 4 for the CU for quarries to see if there's a cross reference to something like that.
What I'm concerned about is these quarries have been around since forever.
Right.
For a long, long time. The records and the information, at least based upon the 3 or so years that I've done quarry inspections, the records are what I should refer to as not fully complete. And I just want to, going forward, I just want to, for the property owners and for the villages and the public's sake, get that cleaned up. Especially if we're going forward, we're going to be running that show. So that's the only comment I can think of. I went through the listing that you have, and it's a good start, and then you're gonna be giving us stuff to review and
Yep.
comment on, which is
Correct.
great. I just want to make sure that that aspect is addressed.
Yeah, this list is including but not limited to. So
Right.
obviously, as other stuff comes up, once you dig into these things, talking about one thing makes you think of something else, we'll have that. And obviously we'll address things as they come up. To your comment about the reclamation plans, we'll have to look at the municipal code to see if any of the existing language in there. I know quarries are required to have a license, in that section, there could be something that there could be a reference to those type of reclamation plans.
Up until the incorporation, the county took care of it,
Right.
so to speak. I believe we can do a much better job for everybody's benefit. I just want to make sure that that aspect is covered in this.
Sure, and I can coordinate with the administrator to see if she's, looked at that as part of the overall updates to the municipal code that's being worked on. Because if there's gonna be language in a different chapter, like I said, there might be a cross-reference to it within our specific standards for those particular CUs, but we'll look at that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's the only comment I have, sir.
Really quick, if I could.
Yeah.
I'm referring to this list, which I think is the one you might have in front of you.
Yeah, from Beerbicker, the previous planners.
Yeah, number 3. We do send agricultural buildings to Plan Commission, and I think we should keep that. Because the latest one that we did was actually a while ago. But they were required to file a deed restriction that the 3rd building was only going to be used for agricultural. And he had to tear down a different building. So, and it was on Swan Road. I'm not gonna mention his name here, but I would like to see that in there if that makes any sense. So I'm gonna touch on these super quick.
Good.
The number 6, the drainage options. In 2014, we had gone through this quite extensively. We ended up keeping the 3-foot separation, but I would be very much in favor of the 18 inches because I can explain to you over the phone or however you want to do it, why I feel that, because I'm the one who deals with this the most. The depth to high groundwater in Lisbon is usually, these basements are usually lower than 3 feet. And a lot of times, builders will raise them up because if they go down too far, they don't meet the grading plan. So the happy medium would be 1'6", in my opinion. And like I said, I can discuss it further. I don't want to take up too much of your time. But we had put stipulations, and a lot of times these builders will opt to stay with the 3 feet instead of having well, they have to have a sealed sump pump by code. But
Doesn't our code say 3 feet, but you go down to 12 inches with a drain to daylight?
yes, and it has to, and if you could do 1'6", you have to get permission, I believe. Yeah, you can go down to 1 foot, 18 inches, and then you have to have a sump pump on battery backup that runs for 4 hours or
Or
more,
a drain to daylight?
or a drain of daylight. Drain of daylight, if every house could have one, I think that's the way to go. But that doesn't
That's
happen.
tough.
That's just a personal opinion. Yeah, and it's tough. So I'm in favor of the 18 inches to change it from 3 feet. And then on the vision triangles, I can talk to you that a little bit more because I don't want to sound too dumb, but I thought that the vision triangle was 100 feet from the center of the intersection, 100 feet each way, and then you just draw a line and that's your vision easement.
That's typically how those work. And in some communities, the size of the vision triangle changes based on the type of roads that are intersecting,
Okay.
smaller for local roads versus if you have two arterials.
Just for fences, that's the way I calculate the vision easement because our ordinance says that the fences can only be 2 feet high in the vision area.
Hmm.
So that's how I calculate. So if I was doing it wrong, that's a 2-part question here, 2-part comment. If
No,
was
I think-
calculating it wrong.
I think vegetation would, and other things, so, some codes say you can't have any structures in the vision triangle. Others just prescribe that anything in the vision triangle can only be up to a certain height. And so, you would obviously have a definition associated with this, and we can look at that and see what our preferences are. That's good.
If I forget, and I email
Yeah,
it to customers too.
A vision triangle might be a good candidate for a image in the code to go along with whatever we come up with for that language.
And then the last thing is actually jumping back from, I'm sorry, 16 to 12 is home businesses. I think they should be allowed in an outbuilding, but with plan commission approval. And you don't get too many of them. Because right now, I think the way it is, I don't think you can have one at all, in detached garage.
I think the
The-
future in most communities is gonna be
The
home
specific
businesses.
standards for a limited family business do allow it to be in an accessory structure, but I think you're right. I think just the regular straight home occupation, no, which doesn't require a permit currently.
More and more people are asking me if they can, and I just tell them no. And then what they want to do is they want to convert their attached garage. And then they want to have a detached garage, but our ordinance says you have to have a minimum square foot attached garage of 440 square feet.
Correct.
That's the email I sent you a while back.
Yep.
Asking you about it.
Yep.
So it kind of all goes round and round. They're like, well, then I'll just take my garage and make it part of my house. It's less than 20%, but then they have no place to park their car. And we don't allow for that. So,
Right.
those are all things to talk
Clean that
about.
up. I agree on that. I think we need to definitely look at the home businesses. I would say
I'm done now.
on the timing on this, you're targeting November.
Oh, that way.
Maybe we need to target October, because it seems if we target November, it'll be March.
I had that conversation with the administrator that we might want to build in a buffer in
Right.
case after the public hearing, we decide to table it to another meeting.
I'd like to do this and get this done while we have our current administrator.
Yep.
So that we will have a new administrator January 1.
She insists that will happen. So, and without her here, I just want to make that clear that this is getting done in this time frame.
Between now and Christmas anyway, office Monday.
I was on the original committee for this ordinance we have. But Sandy Sher pretty much ran the show. Oh, you were, that's right, you were.
Yeah.
And we met, how often did we meet? It took like,
Twice a month.
didn't it take like 2 years to get it done?
Yeah.
I came in on the tail end of it. I just had a couple of comments on the same list that Brian was talking about. Having a house property that has high groundwater, I'd be in favor of keeping it 3 feet. We deal with flooding. For on number 15, the supplemental design standards for subdivisions that talk about moving that to the general, aren't those specific to subdivisions as opposed to an individual lot that's got a house built on it?
So number 15 in Beer Bicker's document you're referencing?
In the one marked Lisbon ordinance amendments, a working list of notes.
So number 15 in the Beer Bicker document, migrate relevant items, landscaping, et cetera, from addendum A supplemental design standards in chapter 12 to chapter 11 or other more appropriate place. Yeah, there shouldn't be any design standards that reference zoning related matters in the subdivision ordinance. So that, I think that's what they're getting at.
Okay, so.
Is that there are design standards in the ordinance that reference things that should happen for certain types of development. And another thing that they're mentioning in this document is that there are specific standards for certain types of development. Are there things that we want to apply community-wide? And an example that they give is landscaping. So these are kind of discussions that we, will have to have. So the addendum that references these design standards in the subdivision development ordinance, they're saying bring what's good into the zoning
Whole thing,
and
transferring it over.
get rid of it from the subdivision ordinance.
My only other comment was on that same list, number 24 for the subdivision code. We had a situation come up a couple of years ago, and there was a lot of discussion at public hearings and plan commission meetings about private sanitary systems in subdivisions being within the property line of the lot. And then we had a situation where a sanitary system was put entirely outside the property. And when that was brought up to the town at the time, we realized there's nothing in our code dictating that. So we need to get something in our code that dictates private sanitary systems must be within the property
I
lines.
think
of
we
the lot.
required it to be, the village requires it or town does, but we're not required to be alerted.
Couldn't, no, that's why they were even, the developer was in violation of its own developers agreement and that got amended. So they weren't in violation anymore because we couldn't enforce it.
Right. And so this reference to the chapter 12 subdivision code, none of that would be within the scope of this project. I think Beer Bicker was just providing these comments as
Right, I
another
was just saying
code
that-
section.
I was just referencing chapter 12 of the subdivision code and we
Yeah.
need to get a provision added in there about the location of private sanitary systems.
Right.
Didn't the developer work?
But it won't be part of the scope of this project
They
for the
went
zoning
straight to
code.
the state to get approval. They bypassed everybody else.
Okay, I know they bypassed us.
Yeah.
I didn't know they went to the state. I thought they went.
No, they went straight to the state.
I don't know that we can regulate that, but it's not part of this project, but just so you know. Septic and sanitary and everything is controlled by the county and the state. We don't have a lot of jurisdiction.
But in the.
If somebody does not have a spot on their property, the state will allow them to get an easement from the neighbor to put their site on.
But the discussion that came up during the plan commission meetings was the original layout of the subdivision had sanitary systems crossing over property lines, so it was in somebody else's property. This instance was, it was in the.
was in the drainage
It was in the
It was in,
drainage.
it's in the, yeah, it's in the waste, it's in the stormwater
Yeah.
management area.
Put the septics in a drainage
They
easement.
put a mound
And
system.
didn't
in
take
the
up for
area.
the top spot. They didn't take up for the, they took.
Yeah, it was interesting discussions.
But I would just, that would be my hope was that we could get something in the code to regulate where. Yeah, of course, exceptions need to be made if there's absolutely no place else for it to go, but. They should try to be maintained be located within the property lines. One is the entire field outside.
Are there any other comments? All right, so again, schedule, we'll just note the recommendation for an October public hearing. Thank you.
Okay, item 5, a short planner report.
Nothing further to report?
That's perfect, short planner report.
That's as short as you can get.
Yeah. Item 6, adjournment. Good news.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second, moved by Joe, seconded by Brian, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
She's
Going
going
out at
to,
8:44.
she's going. Oh, she's understanding, she's in this like, blah, blah, blah.
She's